I actually got exclusive access to a private reception held at the museum. The reception was hosted by eyewitness and former radio reporter Pierce Allman. He invited a group of friends and family members up to the 7th floor of the Old Texas School Book Depository to answer the questions they may still have about that day. Take a look.
My wife suggested to me in fairly strong terms that I had never really sat down with my family or friends and talked about that weekend, November 22nd, 1963. And I thought, well, surely I have. I'm bound to have mentioned it to my daughters. And she said, no, you really haven't. If you were there and if you were involved for the 72 hours afterwards, you're so busy and it becomes kind of a part of your life.
This is the biggest, most horrible tragedy in the history of America. We had Pearl Harbor in 1941, but a lot of us didn't know about it. We didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was. We had 9/11 later, but in those years ensuing, in between, this is the biggest tragedy, and nobody knew how to handle it.
Looking back, Allman says it didn't immediately sink in what had happened and how big of a role he played in our nation's history.
I'm in the lobby of the depository building with the phone, and I am the only one here, and I'm the only one communicating to whoever is outside. That just didn't sink in at all. About 3 weeks later, the Secret Service called and said, we'd like to visit with you. And they asked about the guy in the doorway and tell us what you did, what were your gestures, what were his gestures, what did he say. We went through this 4 or 5 times. And finally, they said, are you familiar with the testimony of Lee Oswald after his arrest? I said, no. They said, well, he states that as he was leaving the depository building, a young man with a crew cut rushed up, identified himself as a newsman, and asked where a phone was. And they said, that's obviously you. And I thought, okay, if I had looked up earlier, if I had gotten a good look, in my haste to get to the phone, would I have recognized him? Would I have said, you're the guy in the window? Would I have put an arm out or called someone, or could I have saved Tippett's life? Now and then I get a little twinge of guilt about not recognizing him and maybe having saved another life. But that's a what if. They don't alter history.
Fellow journalist and Allman's friend Hugh Ainsworth said, it's the government that's to blame for the public's skepticism about how the president was killed.
Immediately, all public officials, national, state, and local, made terrible errors. They said things that were untrue. They said things they didn't know about. They made up things in some cases. You put a TV camera in front of somebody, sometimes they'll tell you anything. So I'm saying that this is why there was such complete distrust from the day one, from the hour one. Now we distrust everything. It's grown and grown and grown.